All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er Vikings Monday Night Football preview. Check out Pig and a Pickle, two locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And this video brought to you by Mojo Fantasy. I'm loving Mojo Fantasy. Here's what I'm going with tonight as far as Mojo Fantasy goes. I'm going with Jordan Addison over 50.5 receiving yards. Brandon Ayuk over 70.5 receiving yards. Alexander Madison under 45.5 rushing yards. Brock Purdy over 1.5 passing touchdowns. And Brock Purdy over 235.5 passing yards. And make sure you click that link in the description over at Mojo Fantasy, and they will match you up to $100. And make sure that you register, because everybody who does gets a chance to win a Nick Bosa or a Brock Purdy jersey when we give it away on Thanksgiving night. Mojo Fantasy does a great job of sponsoring the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little Niners and Vikings. The Monday night game wrapping up week 7. The Vikings are 2-4. 49ers are 5-1, but coming off of a loss. So what's the key to victory tonight? Let's get into it on both sides of the football. First, the Niners offense came into that Browns game averaging 33 points a game. And they just they ran into a number one defense and some bad weather, lost a couple weapons. Brock Purdy threw an interception, and the Niners just didn't look sharp offensively. They need to get back to their offensive ways. They need to get back to that explosive offense that can score 30 points a game. How do they do it? Well, I would say there's 3 guys that I'd like to see featured in the passing game. Brandon Ayuk. With no Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk has to step up. Last week he did not. He had 3 drops. Purdy put it on his hands 3 times, and he dropped it 3 times. He's got to catch the football tonight and have a bust-out performance on national TV. George Kittle. It's time to get Kittle involved. He's had 7 targets over the last 3 weeks. He only has 25 targets on the year. Get George Kittle involved in the passing game like he was in the second half of last year. And then I would say it might be time to dust off Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell, I go to every single practice, and Ronnie Bell has got as good a hands and feet and ability to make these contested catches and catches on the sideline and get the feet down. He's got as good of ability as almost any 49er wide receiver. Utilize him. I realize he's a rookie. You haven't needed to with all the weapons you've had, but Ronnie Bell is ready to play. He's bouncy. He knows the offense. He's a Midwestern guy going back to the Midwest. And this is the perfect spot to feature him. He could have 100 yards tonight if they featured him a little bit more. So, get Brandon Ayuk going, utilize George Kittle, and find Ronnie Bell. And I would start throwing the ball to Ronnie Bell in this game. Brock Purdy needs to bounce back. He was not sharp last week. He needs to be much sharper tonight against Minnesota. I would say the other factors on offense: play a clean game. Last week against Cleveland, the Niners had 12 penalties for over 100 yards against the Browns. This week at practice, they got back to basics and back to their fundamentals. Let's see it. We need a clean game tonight. 12 penalties won't get it done. And then as far as the running back splits, CMC is going to go. There's no Debo. So last week, CMC had 36 snaps. Desmond Mason played 15 snaps, and Elijah Mitchell played 7. So of the 58 snaps, 36 went to CMC, 15 to Mason, 7 to Mitchell. Figure roughly 60 snaps tonight. I would like to see a 20-20-20 split between CMC, Mason, and Mitchell. 20 snaps for Mason, 20 snaps for Mitchell, 20 snaps from Christian McCaffrey. That's how I'd like to see it. McCaffrey's not 100%. If you get a lead, take him out, and then give Mason and Mitchell a higher percentage of the snaps. But to me, just on the surface going in, just a loose goal. How about let's split it up in thirds this week? A third for CMC, a third for Mason, a third for Mitchell, and ride the hot hand. See who looks good. React in game. But that's how I'd like to see it split up. Take care of the football is a major key this week. 49ers lead the NFL in turnover differential. They're +8. Minnesota's on the other side of this thing. They are 30th in turnover differential at -7. Take care of the football. At some point, these things all start to even out. This if we don't want to see that in this game. We don't want to see the 49ers being, you know, leading the NFL in turnover differential, but -2 at the end of the night. Or Minnesota 30th in turnover differential, but they're +2 or +3 at the end of the night. Um, you never know when the worm's going to turn on the turnovers. So don't turn the ball over, and especially on offense. That's really the key. Don't turn it over. And then the 49ers offensive line needs to pick up blitzes. The Vikings blitzed the Bears last week 71% of the time. They blitz a ton. So it's not just about Danielle Hunter. It's about Jordan Hicks. It's about Ivan Pace. It's about the safety Josh Metellus. They're all coming. Hicks and Pace have blitzed a ton this year. Metellus is, you could argue, outside of Hunter himself, might be their best pass rusher. This is probably the key to the game, is picking up the blitzes and dealing with Danielle Hunter. There'll be no Trent Williams. Jalen Moore is going to start at left tackle. Communication is going to be of the utmost importance. And just know that the Vikings are sending Jordan Hicks. They're sending Ivan Pace, who's a 5'10 linebacker, but he can really, really run. And they're sending Josh Metellus. So, pick up their blitzes, deal with Hunter, put another body on his side, get the ball out quick, feature the run, maybe screen game him from behind, and just the hole that he vacates, throw the screen game right there. But be ready for Hicks and Pace and Metellus as blitzers. I think that's a major key to victory tonight. All right, let's flip the card. Let's talk about the Niners defensively against Minnesota. Stop Minnesota's run game. Alexander Madison, Cam Akers. The Niners allow 160 yards per game, are allowed 160 yards per game against the Browns, and 4.7 yards per carry. That ain't good enough. Whether Dre Greenlaw is out there or not, you can't let Madison and Akers get loose. If they do, it's going to be a long night. It absolutely is. If you give Kirk Cousins the ability to have that play action game at his disposal the entire night, it's going to be a long night. He's a veteran passer. Even without his number one receiver, he's a dangerous player if he's got the play action at his disposal. Make them one-sided. Take away their run game. Gang tackle Madison and Akers. Cause turnovers. Minnesota's had 13 turnovers and 9 fumbles. Go for the ball. Go to try to punch it out. I mean, every team in football is looking at Minnesota and their fumbles and saying, go for the ball. Do the same. Go for the football. Punch it out. The Vikings ranked 25th in the NFL in run DVOA. They've had 0 rushing touchdowns on the year. They've run the ball less than most other teams in the game because they just can't do it. They're not running the ball well. So they only average 2.1 a carry against Chicago. Don't let their run game get going. Absolutely imperative that the Niners take away Madison and Akers in that run game from Minnesota. No explosives. The 49er defense has allowed the fewest number of explosives in the NFL. They only give up 3.3 explosive plays per game. That needs to be on point. No explosives. I don't think Minnesota can drive the ball consistently against this 49er defense, but if they get explosive plays, they won't have to. So no explosives, limit their explosives. Jordan Addison is a big part of their explosive passing game. He's very competitive at the catch point. He's 5'11", but he plays like a 6'3" receiver. He gets up in the air. He'll make plays on the ball. He's very competitive at the catch point for the football. So you got to reroute him and be physical with him at the line of scrimmage. You got to get hands on him at the line of scrimmage. He's slithery. He's hard to jam. He's only 175 pounds, though. And if you can jam him at the line of scrimmage, I think you got a better chance of beating him than trying to let him get that free release and then slow him down the field. Key on the tight end, TJ Hawkinson. If you look at the numbers, Hawkinson is Cousins' favorite guy, especially without Justin Jefferson. The Niners have been great all year against the tight end, but they may not have Dre Greenlaw in this game. shut down TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson is the guy that Cousins is going to be looking for. And then put some pressure on Kirk Cousins. But more than pressure him, you got to sack him. Kirk Cousins is only 7-11 in primetime games in his career. He's not a guy that wins a lot of big games, but he's also very, very good against pressure. If you look at the numbers, Cousins has a passer rating of 96.7 while under pressure. That's second in the NFL only to Baker Mayfield. He's getting pressured on about a third of his dropbacks, so 31% according to Pro Football Focus. That's the fourth lowest percentage of pressured dropbacks in the league. And he's only completed 46% of his passes under pressure, which is 22nd best out of 29 quarterbacks. And he's thrown 7 touchdowns, though, and only 1 interception for 391 yards against pressure. So it's not about just pressuring Cousins. You actually have to sack Cousins. His accuracy definitely dips when he's under pressure, but he can still make a lot of plays. Half of his 14 touchdowns passes this year have come under pressure. So the Niners do a great job of creating pressure up front. Their D-line has 136 quarterback pressures. Nick Bosa's got 29. Hargrave has 21. They're in the top 30 of all defensive players. But the Niner pass rush has got to finish, and they've got to sack the quarterback. Despite the fact that Niners have had a lot of pressures, they rank near the middle of the league with only 15 total sacks. Pressures are good, but sacks matter a whole lot more. And the Niners have to be able to sack the quarterback. Cousins has only been sacked 15 times on 252 dropbacks this year. Now, their most vulnerable spot on the offensive line is the right guard spot. Ed Ingram has allowed 20 pressures. That's twice as many as anybody else on their offense. So Hargrave and Armstead could potentially go off in this game against Ed Ingram inside and put that pressure on Cousins and maybe even throw in some sacks. If you can get some sacks on Cousins, I think you got a much better chance of winning this game. Sacking Cousins is going to be major. And then ultimately, you have to limit Minnesota's yards after contact to their running backs. Their running backs have not been good this year. They haven't run it a lot. But where they are good, and the numbers show it, is they're fourth best in the NFL at yards after contact. Alexander Madison's a bigger back. Cam Akers will bounce off of tackles. You got to gang tackle their running backs and bring more than one hat to the party, so to speak, on their running backs. They're good after contact. So what are the keys? You got to sack Cousins. You can't just pressure him. You got to sack him. You got to key on TJ Hawkinson. Niners usually do a great job against the tight end. You got to shut down their run game, especially after contact. You have to limit their explosives because explosives are an equalizing factor for sure. You got to take away their run. You got to force turnovers. They've had 9 fumbles. And, you got to get back to being that run defense that you were going into the Cleveland game. Cleveland kind of exposed the Niner run D by running for 160 and 4.7 a carry. That can't happen in this game tonight, or it's going to be a long, long night for the 49ers. All right, thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show. Thanks to Mojo Fantasy for being our sponsor. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Have a great day. Enjoy the Niners and the Vikings on Monday Night Football. And once again, thanks to everybody for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.